All right, we're here tonight in the shop with Ryan Taddia, who owns Dripping Springs Automotive in Dripping Springs, Texas. And Ryan and I have known each other now for 5 years, literally since day one of my being in business, and thought it'd be a great opportunity to sit down and have a chat about his perspective on shop ownership, the kinds of things that he looks for in new and seasoned technicians. So I thought, let's start with a little bit of history about how you got into the business, how you got into shop ownership specifically, and how that has led to where you are today.
Well, I'd probably have to say the first time I was in a shop, I was in a baby swing, and my dad was working on the car in front of me as I was swinging away. That was pretty much my introduction to the business. Growing up in the shop and around this business, and it's pretty much been my whole life. Even now, we still do the same, and I do the same with my kids. They're here running around playing, and I'm indoctrinating them very early on, automobiles. But anyway, I got my main start, just like many other people. I was in high school. I liked cars. All my buddies were out getting their Mustangs and Camaros and bringing them to the shops and having them souped up. And one day I sat down and I asked my dad, well, what kind of car should I look for? And, he asked me a few questions. And, I was looking at Camaros and Mustangs. And he said, well, if you're going to look for an American car, why don't you look at a Corvette? So I did. I looked at Corvettes for about 4 or 5 months. Couldn't find one under $20,000. And in the early 90s, for a high school kid to come up with that kind of money, just wasn't going to happen. So I went out and I bought myself a 1984 Porsche 911 for half the price. And I still have it today. But that was the beginning anyways. I started wrenching on my own cars, really enjoying it. Growing up in the business, with my dad having the opportunities that I had with that, it really made it easy and pretty, expected, maybe almost to a point, for that to be kind of the next step. But, out of high school, I went through 2 years of technical college. Texas State Technical College up in Waco was just an absolute, let's just say I wouldn't be here now if it wasn't for that place. I learned an awful lot about just the industry and what it was going to take to really get into some of the new cars, because keep in mind, I was going through technical school in 1997, and OBD2 had just been introduced to the automotive market. So we're dealing with things that I had never heard of or seen before. I'm used to adjusting carburetors, not necessarily, looking at check engine lights and going through pinpoint diagnostics. So, it was really an interesting time for the automobile at that point.
Now, what was your progression then from that point in your career to progressing into ownership and managing a shop and hiring people?
Well, it was a lot of experience, working in a lot of different places and a lot of different jobs, and just deciding that I wanted to do it a better way. My biggest, goal as a business owner has absolutely nothing to do with automotive repair at all. It has to do with customer service, because we are a service business, and I have to treat it that way. Now, don't get me wrong, if that car's not fixed properly, the service end has failed. But assuming that the vehicle gets diagnosed properly, gets repaired properly, gets maintained properly, the next biggest thing a customer is going to be concerned about is, how was I treated when I was there? Did they take care of me? Were they just looking to make a buck? Are they involved in the community? Things like that. So, that was a big part of the leap between working as a technician or a service advisor or a manager and deciding to jump into ownership.
Well, Dripping Springs is not the biggest city in the world, and although it's growing,
Not yet.
I know.
We've got a lot of people moving here.
That's the truth. It is growing, but still, I think that there's that sense of a smaller community, and that people seem to care more about your particular involvement in the community. Have they seen your work in other places? Have they heard your name in other circles? So, what kind of involvement do you have that kind of gets your name and your reputation out there?
Well, just on a daily basis, I do my best to get out there and just do our marketing. I mean, basic online stuff, but which is not just stuff; it's actually pretty darn important, as we're saying right here. But being involved in the Rotary Club, being active in different social organizations that are community driven. Being a part of the Chamber of Commerce, showing up to highway cleanups and pickups, working with the Boy Scouts and the Cub Scouts and the Girl Scouts. I mean, all of this stuff really kind of, allows you to give back to the community that's given you so much. And, growing up here, it's real easy for me to sit down and take a stand on, because, I mean, I've been here since I was 12 years old. To be in a community for that long, it's really important that you show somebody, that you're not going to just walk away and be gone next year. Gosh, I've got 30 years invested in this community, and I look forward to at least another 30. So I hope so.
I hope so, because it's such a competitive industry like this is, especially in a growing city where the volume of customers increases regularly. Right? There's more cars, there's more vehicles. The natural assumption is more repair shops are going to crop up. Right? More competition.
Sure.
Right? You're going to have some competitive advantage.
Absolutely.
Against everybody else. And although the services you provide may be the same, how do you differentiate yourself from the guy who might just be the next street over or just a mile down the road?
Well, a lot of that has to do with like that community involvement. But it really just all goes back to customer service. We provide loaner vehicles for our customers. We provide gifts when they leave as a thank you for choosing us. We bend over backwards if we need to go and pick up their car at their house for no additional charge. We do that. We take them to work when we can. We send them Christmas cards. So there's a lot that we do to keep our customers, plugged into what we're doing. And if it's not necessarily an interesting topic, at least they see our name, and they know that we're there. So, it's just kind of one of those things that it's not anything that I'm going to accomplish in one day. It's more of a slow process that builds over time. And, if people see you out there and doing things, they're going to associate you with the business and the business with you. And I mean, shoot, I live this business. I'm Dripping Springs Automotive 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't, well, people would be able to tell. The business wouldn't run as smoothly. We would settle for employees who were not top notch. And, we wouldn't be able to provide the level of service and skill that we do.
So how difficult have you found it to be to recruit employees who share your philosophy, who are going to take it's kind of a loaded question, because obviously to anyone who owns a business, they know the hardest thing is to keep and retain good employees.
Absolutely.
Everybody knows this.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just here. And
it's in any industry.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, all the trades are facing the same issue that I face as a business owner. And it's one of the biggest challenges by far. It's a whole lot more difficult to find the right person than it is to find a good customer. And, it's even more important to keep them in good shape within the business. I hate to say this because I don't want to lose any customers over it, but it's almost more important to keep that employee happy than it is to keep a customer happy in a lot of cases. Now, granted, keep it in perspective.
Right.
If you've got an employee who's not up to par, everything I just said kind of goes out the window.
Well, because a happy, productive employee who cares about the job he does and about your business is going to make happy customers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're going to want to see the business succeed.
Yeah.
They've got a stake in the business. They might not necessarily be getting a profit share, but they're getting one really good paycheck at the end of the week. And it's my job to make sure that they are able to accomplish that, whether it be through providing work or providing training and allowing them to increase their skill. And then that's where you come in as far as tools go. Having a good tool man who can show up every week, be dependable. Those guys are going to really grow and grow in the right way with the right kind of training. And with the experience that I have, I do my absolute best to pass on the mistakes that I've made so that they don't have to. And I've made a lot of mistakes over the years. That's how I know so much.
Well, and if you're anything like me, you still make them every now and then. Hopefully you still learn from them and you pass that along to your guys, because it's a good segue, by the way, into the tool stuff. Was as you recruit people or as you see prospective guys coming in the door, how much of how you gauge their experience and their competence and their abilities is based on the tools that they own and use and what their buying philosophies and habits are?
Well, you can tell a lot from somebody. It's like walking into somebody's house. If I get a real young guy who shows up with a giant Snap-on toolbox, I'm going to think one of two things: he wasn't trained properly and he's in a lot of debt, or he's really good. And where has he been for the last 10 years?
Yeah.
So, or she, I guess I should say these days. But whatever person it is, their toolbox says a lot. Is it clean? Is it organized? Do they work out of a roll cart? Do they work out of a meat cart, for that matter? I've had guys show up with meat carts. It's really interesting. But, really when it all boils down to it, I don't really care what brand tool is on the side of that toolbox or cart or wrench or whatever. I'm more interested that they've got something that's going to be a quality tool, and it's going to fit their level. And I guess what I mean by that is, like I said, you don't want some young guy walking in with a giant Snap-on toolbox, because that throws up some red flags. But if you get a guy who's in his 50s or 60s, I would hope that he's got something that he's been able to grow for a long time and establish a good set of tools he can rely on with whatever it says on the tool. It really doesn't matter. That's kind of been my tool speech to all my guys from day one, is as long as you've got a tool that works and you can rely on it, that's all I care about.
Because there's guys certainly who have gotten a lot of bad advice when they try to grow their career as a technician. I've talked to a few guys about what it was like when they're first coming into the industry and how some guys had really good mentors. There's some shops that bring in newer folks as apprentices who work under senior people who are there to help them with every part of their career, right? From working on the cars and how to get along in the shop to how to shop properly on a tool truck, how to not get the stars in your eyes at necessarily things that you think are cool, but rather on the things that you need, and focus your priorities there.
Sure.
And then there's other guys who have been devoid of that entirely. And some guys learn that lesson early on and some guys don't. How have you seen that progression in technicians based on the kinds of exposures they may have had previously to their tool buying experience, the quality of their tool guy on the truck, or the quality of mentors or lack thereof in our shop?
And, it's kind of like a nature versus nurture question almost. A lot of it is going to be based off of the person themselves. They say attitude is everything, and I couldn't agree more with that statement. The guys that have been properly trained, though, that already have that level of commitment and desire to better themselves, are going to just catapult forward. But even if the guys that have the right attitude and personality don't have that, they're still going to progress. That's the big thing, and that's kind of what I look for. I quit looking for skill a long time ago because, quite honestly, I can teach skill. I can teach somebody how to change oil all the way up to how to interpret an oscilloscope waveform, based off of whatever they're testing. So I look for commitment and attitude more than I look for anything else. And with that also comes a level of commitment from the technician. In most cases, anyways, I should say. But yeah, skill and experience has kind of taken a back seat, because a lot of the times when I've gone after that, I've not ended up with a good team member. I've ended up with a really great technician, but he is a horrible team member. And when things start going south with the team, it makes the work environment sour, and you just, it's not worth it. So we go back to attitude and personality.
And certainly you've seen guys who have had formal education. You've had it yourself. Plenty of guys who haven't, but have done a very good job of learning because they're students of their field. Do you see a significant difference between guys with formal educations and guys who are just really serious about learning regardless of whether they went to school? I'm
going to have to say no. That's kind of a trick question, in the sense that most of the guys that have the formal education, they had the opportunity for it.
Right.
If you've got that drive and ambition, but without that opportunity, for example, I've got training programs that I set our technicians up with based off of their current skill level and what their abilities are. We've got online training. We used to have in-person training. It's all turned into Zoom training now. But we attend classes at least every other month. We have online courses that we can take whenever we have time. So the information and the knowledge is there and readily available. It just is up to the shop owner and the person who's wanting that knowledge to go after it or provide it. Maybe the other way around, provide it or go after it, but
Yep.
You get it.
Sure, yeah. And what goes hand in hand with that knowledge and experience, obviously, is, get back to tool buying habits that people have. Do you provide, mentorship in that regard? Or, like, I know you got Edgar working for you, who's a younger guy, but he's been with you for, I'm not going to say, I was going to say, because if I say how long he's moved, I know I'm going to shoot short.
5 years, 6 years.
Has it been that long?
It has been that long. Yeah. And the only experience he had before he came to work here was working at Little Caesars.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. And I had not realized it'd been that long.
It's been a while. Yeah. Maybe it hadn't been 6 years. Maybe it's been 5. But he's been here for a long time, and I don't know what we do without him. He's one of the backbones of this place.
And he always strikes me as, first of all, he's quiet. Right? So,
Yes. That's not a bad thing.
it's not a bad thing at all. It is, knowing him as long as I have, I think his waters run pretty deep, right?
Very,
He always seems focused. He always seems eager to learn because he's going to school currently.
Yes.
Right. And yet I know guys who have come up in the field who have not been to school, but know just as much as anyone has based on how engaged they've been in their own progression.
Absolutely.
So how do you see a guy like Edgar relative to different kinds of personality types who may not put the same emphasis on the formal training that Edgar is getting currently? And how does that differentiate maybe their personalities, maybe their aptitude, or maybe how they get along and work in their shop?
Well, first off, they're usually a little bit more plugged in. So they're going to pick up on things as they go a lot of the times, more so than having to be told, so to speak. And it's all going to kind of go back around to that personality and attitude, because they're using their own drive and ambition to make decisions. They're taking information from everywhere, they're processing it, and then making a decision that's best for them. Whether it be opportunity for training, or, hey, I've had to borrow this tool 3 or 4 times. Maybe I should take a look into purchasing one. Then thinking again, well, I don't need to buy the one that's $100. I can buy one that's $65. And then maybe I can get that other tool next week. So there's a lot there, a lot that they've got to process and pull from in order to make those decisions. And we all do, for that matter. I mean, every one of us do on a daily basis. And that's what makes us all individuals and makes us who we are. But yeah, at the end of the day, the guys that have the drive and the ambition, they do tend to take a look at things in I'd say more realistic light, more so than, the glass is always full kind of scenario, maybe. They're really, how can I say this? Now I'm going into a dead end. Oh, painting myself into a corner. But anyways, so yeah, I'm done. You're gonna have to edit. Sorry.
That's no sweat. We can just run with it.
Yeah, we could.
It doesn't matter.
We could. But anyways, I'm trying to answer the question at the same time as get it all out.
Sure,
but
yeah.
But anyways, yeah, the guys that have a small amount of experience, but they've got a high level of drive and ambition. They have a tendency of kind of moving towards. See, I don't want to say that either. It's not going to work. I'm trying so hard not to say Snap-on or Mach-O or.
It's okay. We can throw anyone on the bus we want.
There you go. But anyways,
some of these other videos, there's a lot of
back and
there's a lot of that going around. But I think it's a legitimate point, because there's guys who, as younger technicians,
yes,
have gotten absolutely railroaded and taken advantage of by some of their tool guys.
Yes,
right, without
absolutely.
a doubt, right?
Yeah.
And I don't say this to bash Snap-on, but that's the name that keeps coming up.
Okay.
Right.
And it does.
It does, and it's something that unfortunately we've seen regularly.
Yeah.
And there's guys that'll, they got on the tool truck, and the next thing you know, there's some magical pixie dust that gets sprinkled on them, and they're buying toolboxes and scanners and expensive power tools that, typically speaking, the newer techs don't need, right?
Well, it's easy to say, look at this shiny new wrench.
Yeah.
How much money can you make with this shiny new wrench? And he's right.
Yeah.
You can make a lot of money with that shiny new wrench, but you don't have to pay $100 for it.
Right. I had a guy get on the truck, and he's an old timer too. He got on the truck and he said, "How much is an 1 5/16 wrench? Regular combination wrench?" I'm like, "I don't know." He says, "Tell me it's less than $210." I said, "Yeah, it's way less than $210. Why?" And he said, "Because I got out the Snap-on truck, and that's something he wanted for that wrench."
Yeah.
Right. This is what these guys are up against. And he was an old timer who knew enough to say, that's too much for a wrench.
Sure.
Right. But how do you work with guys like that, both who operate the tool trucks and guys who work for you in your shop, to try to make sure guys don't get taken advantage of? Because there is a lot of that, unfortunately, in the industry.
There is. And I give all my guys the tool speech, basically, when they first start. And then, I just keep plugged in with them. We have meetings every Wednesday nights. We talk. I see what they're looking at and what they're getting themselves into. And, I'll just ask them, hey, how you doing? That's a pretty nice set of wrenches you got there. How much you pay for it? Do you think you needed to spend that much? No, but yeah, just daily conversations and training. And training isn't just, hey, this is how you fix a car. It's hey, this is how you survive and thrive within this industry. And that's a big part of it. The shop, of course, has its own sets of tools and specialty equipment and everything else. But when it really all boils down to it, as far as their own personal tools, they have a lot of different places they can go. But when I try to make sure that they go to the right places, and when they don't, I'll ask them about it and make sure that they're all right and that they didn't just get, kind of railroaded, so to speak. But that, again, that's the nice thing about having a company like Coyle Tools around, because I know that I can send anybody on that truck and that they're not going to get taken advantage of. They're not going to show up with a toolbox full of brand new shiny tools when, they're having a hard time paying the rent, or making their car loan, or saving money to send their kids to school, or whatever the scenario is.
Yeah, and I think that's one point that I've heard a lot from guys who learned that lesson kind of early on in their career, where if the guy in the tool truck gets to them first, and starts, oh no, that's only $50 a week, and think, well, I can afford $50 a week. Sure. For how long? Right. And what are you getting for that $50 a week? And it's not healthy for anybody's financial future just to have that tab growing and growing and growing and growing, and with no end in sight.
Well, and at some point you got to call uncle.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just take on a load of debt and just expect to be able to work it all off by the end of the year. I mean, I've seen guys walk off the tool truck with a brand new toolbox and, boom, automatically $20,000 in debt, and there's interest that goes along with that, and it's not cheap.
Well, I think that's part of the thing that doesn't get explained to a lot of guys is what are the terms and conditions of the credit programs you're entering into? And I think a lot of that is either ignored or glossed over, or here, just sign that.
Oh, sure.
Right, and we'll roll this toolbox off.
Yep.
And my heart kind of breaks for the newer guys who get suckered into stuff like that, because it matters, and it's going to set the tone for them for a long time to come about how they view other tool guys, right? How they view the financial viability of their career based on where they are at the time, right? A guy earning, 13 to 15 bucks an hour is going to have a very different outlook than a guy earning 30, 35 bucks an hour.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? And I feel bad that a lot of guys get, a bad taste in their mouth. A lot of guys decide they're going to tap out altogether. It's not worth it. They can't afford it, whatever.
Sure.
But they've been told you're always going to have a tool bill, right? If you're a mechanic or a technician, you're always going to have to buy stuff. And I think that's a little cynical.
Well, I definitely agree, especially taken from that perspective. Now, I definitely believe that every technician should have a tool bill, but how big is it, and is it manageable? Does it have to be $50 a week, or can it be 10? Do you have to have a balance of $2,000 or $3,000, or can you have a few hundred? I mean, even me, I don't think I've ever racked up more than $500 or $600 on the tool truck. I pay it all off before I go ahead and buy more, and that's just how I personally like to take care of myself.
Because it's easier to manage that way, right?
Yeah.
You need the discipline, though, to know what your personal budget is, and to stick with that.
That's right.
And to not just think, well, I've got an extra couple $100 this week, I'm going to go blow it on things I don't really need.
Well, and as a business owner, the days of the business owner that rules with an iron fist, sorry guys, they're over.
So if you're one of those guys who rules with an iron fist,
sorry, you might want to go get some training for yourself. But,
well, because there's a lot of that, right? There's a lot. In fact, I was talking with Gary, who's your new tech, about it earlier, and he was talking about how he felt undervalued, about how he felt like his input didn't matter, how he's just tired of kind of this boxing in the dark and not being able to get any kind of feedback or input from his management, and find it's like, I don't matter. I'll go find a job at a place where I do.
Yeah, and that's a perfect example where, I mean, and again, money matters.
Of course it does.
But it took a back seat to how he was being treated at, his past shop.
Right.
And, I mean, those guys might have been doing a great job in a lot of areas, but the one area they weren't was making them feel important, and, you can say whatever you want. Everybody likes to feel important.
Of course.
Always. They like to hear themselves talk. They like to think that people like them. I mean, that's just the way people are. And if you can work towards having people feel better about themselves and want to learn how to grow and do better, well, you're kind of going down the right trail. But if you're sitting over somebody and say, I need that car done by 2 o'clock, and if not, you're fired. I'll get somebody else in here. You're going to have to fire them, and good luck getting somebody else in there, because we all know that is one of the most difficult things every employer has on their plate is finding good, and I have to say good, employees. And
keeping them.
Right. I mean, if you can't hold on to the people that you have working for you, you might want to take a look at how you're managing them, because people don't leave jobs; they leave managers.
No, that's a great point.
And I do my best to. I don't want to say I treat them like children, because I definitely do not, but I care about them like I care about my own kids. I want to see them do well. I want to see them progress. I want to see them get their ASE certifications. I want to see them purchase tools and, make their lives easier because they've got the right tool for the job. And making sure that they don't buy the wrong tool for the job is a big part of that.
Sure.
And anyway, yeah. So that's, that's the way I view things. And, I think that if managers aren't already looking at things that way, they probably should.
Somebody put it to me years ago, and I love this saying. He said, if you take care of your employees, they will take care of your business.
Absolutely.
And I really like that, because that made all the sense in the world to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the way that I have geared my philosophy too, because people have to know that they matter.
Oh, sure.
Because they do.
Well, absolutely. And do you have a guy that's looking forward to coming to work today? Yep. Or a guy that's kind of gritting his teeth going, oh, God, it's Wednesday, 3 more days. Well, maybe 2.5. So, I mean, it's just, one of those things. You want to make sure that you provide a good work environment. Yeah. And part of that are the employees you hire. In fact, in my case, we have 4 employees, including myself. I'm only a quarter of this shop. I might own it. I might make all the final decisions, but you know what? I go around to each person and I ask them their opinion before I do most things. Hey, do you want to move the tire machines today? No, they're fine where they are. Cool. I agree, they're fine where they are. But, point is, before we hire on a new tech, I talk to the whole crew. You guys tired of working your butts off? You want to bring somebody on? If the answer is yes, well, we start looking.
Well, that's a good point, because I think there's plenty of shop owners who don't look at how bringing on more people affects their current employee base.
Oh, sure.
And of course, you dilute the work then once you bring in more people, because that's less work per person. Mm-hmm. And I think there are some guys who own shops who simply don't care about that.
Yeah, and in my opinion, they've just kind of lost sight of what's important. And granted, the almighty dollar is definitely, again, an important thing, sure. But it's not always the most important thing.
Because there's a happy medium there.
Absolutely.
Right? You can't hire too many people to the point where no one's happy.
Yep.
You can hire not enough people to the point where you just can't keep up with work, and now you're turning people away. Mm-hmm. So how do you look for that sweet spot?
You do your best, and then you learn how to schedule work. That's about it. I mean, I've worked this shop with 1 technician. I've worked it with 2, and now we're working it with 3. And, it didn't matter how many guys we had in the shop. There were times when we were too busy to get all the work out. And, what you do is, you might turn some late nights and some early mornings and some weekends to try to get even more production finished and completed. But if the service writer or service manager is scheduling work one right on top of the next when it doesn't necessarily have to be, there's a real big thing there too, that you can't, not pay attention to. So, the office's job is to support the shop, and the shop's job is to support the office, and it's both of their jobs to support the business and the customer. And, it sounds simple, but
yeah, put it in practice though, and it's
you're juggling 100 balls at once and picking all the ones up that you can that have fallen, and
you need people with the right skills to make it all happen.
Absolutely.
And too, the willingness to work together.
Yeah.
That's a very real definition of teamwork, right? Because you have to support each other. You have to work toward other people's success.
Yep.
When you're on a real team.
Oh,
and that's absolutely required certainly in a shop environment.
Yep. We've got, that brings up a great point. We give all of our guys personality tests, every single one of them. In fact, I've given people I interview personality tests if I'm halfway interested in bringing them on. Even if I don't know if they're 100% perfect fit for the team, I'll still give it to them just so that they have something to look at and I have something to look at. And it's always interesting to see how those turn out. But yeah, personalities within the shop, if they don't mesh, you're going to have problems. And it doesn't matter how skilled the guy is or how smart or intelligent the people are. You don't put somebody who's very aggressive with somebody who's not. Just put it that way. That aggressive person, not physically, but just personality, an aggressive personality, they're going to walk all over that other person. And, depending on that person's patience and, they might snap. You never know. And then next thing you know, you've got this huge blow up in the shop and it's nothing but a bunch of drama, and you're spending your whole day dealing with the drama, not dealing with the business.
Because in a best case scenario, it's a guy who other people just don't feel comfortable approaching, right? So that person's now isolated him or herself, right? No one else is going to be supporting that effort, right? So you've got this island of a person here,
right,
surrounded by these other people who just want to take a hands-off approach. That's not healthy.
Not at all.
And then on the other end of that spectrum, you got the caustic personality, someone who's verbally aggressive or is a tool thrower, and that's not healthy. So and I've known guys that got let go because they had that wrong kind of personality. They didn't. They were too much of a this cancerous element in a shop that has dragged other guys down.
Well, and yeah, that's something that every business owner needs to be aware of and really pay attention to, because that's exactly it. It's that element that really destroys businesses from within. I mean, granted, people have destroyed businesses from the outskirts plenty of times in the past, but if you really want to see a business self-destruct from within, you put stress and tension inside that business and in between those employees, especially if you start getting up into the management, because the employees know if the management is going at it, even if they don't do it in front of everybody. And it's one of the worst things that could happen to a business. It really is, and that's why I screen and really take my time when we're trying to hire someone. And it, like I said, I keep going back to personality and attitude, but the person also has to fit the shop. If you've got 3 A techs, do you really need a 4th one? I mean, you might. You definitely might. Yeah. But it might be a good idea to bring on a B or a C tech. Somebody who can get some of that lighter work done and let these A guys do their diagnostics and some of the heavier work and the more intricate stuff that they have the skill for. And maybe you could take that C guy and put him underneath one of the A guy's wings and have him actually learn. And it's the stuff like that I don't want to say doesn't happen in the industry, but I've not seen it at a lot of shops. You know, and that's really one thing that I would say sets us apart from the employment aspect. You know, we try to take care of the guys. We try to give them good advice. You know, we try to make sure that they're have plenty of hours, and if they don't have the hours, then I make sure that we have vehicles that bring in for projects that they can earn the hours. You know, it's really putting them first, you know, in a lot of instances. And, you know, that's what it's, in my mind anyways, that's what it's all about, because that's the only way, well, a business like mine anyways, is going to move forward. You know, it's with a team that's all in, 100%, and they want to see this place rocking and rolling, because I've tried, but I can't do everything myself.
And I think the best managers understand that.
Yeah.
Right? You've got to allow people to do their jobs. You got to trust them to do it well. Be there to help them if they need help along the way. But ultimately, you've got to turn that over to other people, and that's not easy for owners to do.
Yeah, and to the managers, you know, if you've got a guy that has an attitude, you know, you don't have to fire him immediately, especially if he's productive for you, you know. But you might want to start interviewing and looking for the right one, you know. I just spent 2 years finding the right guy, and you know, 2 weeks in, he looks like he's fitting that mold extremely well. And I say mold, that's not even the right word, but he's fitting that position very well. He gets along with everybody in the shop. He does a great job. He's very thorough in his inspections. He's very skilled in his repair. And I could have hired somebody 3 weeks ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, but they weren't the right one.
Right, because ultimately it's worth it. And it takes a lot of self-discipline, I have found, to not give into that desperation that you feel.
Oh, sure.
When I really need to hire somebody, it can't just be anybody. You know, you've got to wait for the right person, and that's so hard.
Well, I've had Mr. Right Now bite me in the ass too many times to want to really go down that road again. And you know, we're doing fine. You know, we were making a good profit, and we could have made more.
Sure.
If I had the guy, but I realized, I mean, bringing people on, and I'll give you an example. You know, a few years back, I had a few guys come in. So I had two guys. One guy started at the beginning of the year and worked a couple months, and the other guy kind of came in towards the end of the year and worked a couple months. So I probably had about 6 months of coverage with two technicians. Well, the one technician that was here all year long brought in, like, I don't know, $30,000 in revenue or something like that. The other two combined only brought in $8,000. So
wow.
It's a perfect example of production and hiring the right person for the job. And they were both just as skilled as the other person was, maybe a little bit less, maybe. But it didn't, the amount of production they were able to produce just wasn't worth the amount of time it took to train and stay on top of and follow up with again and follow up with again because they didn't have the drive and the ambition to do what was necessary to become the technician they told me they wanted to become. And, you know, I'm all about helping people and training people and helping them grow, obviously. But if I'm trying harder than they are, I mean, that right there is a huge red flag. And, you know, that's when I start to question whether they're the right fit or not. So, you know, anyway.
Well, it's all the more reason to make sure you got the best hiring process you can get. And, of course, that's always something that I'm sure you're refining and trying to get better at. You know,
every interview.
And when you do land somebody you think is the right person, you got to put the effort into making sure that they're appreciated, to keeping them around, because you don't want that person walking out the door for greener pastures,
sure.
especially when you spend the time, the money, the effort to recruiting and training and trying to retain them. That's expensive.
Oh, very. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of dollars every month just for recruitment ads, or the time that it takes to go to technical schools and talk to the kids, the time it takes to put a Google ad together for technicians to keep, a post on Indeed and do 10 interviews a week.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes a lot of time and effort. You're absolutely right. And that's why when you get somebody, you do what you can to keep them happy and committed, and that's, I think everyone's looking for a place where they belong. And, if you've got a place where you feel, I was talking directly to the technicians, whether you're old or new, if you have a place where you belong, or have found a place where you feel like you belong, stay there. Things will get better. If they don't get better, do you belong there? How is management treating you? Are you a part of the team, not just somebody telling you you're a part of the team? And at the end of the week, if they wait until 6:30 on a Friday to give you your paycheck, there's not a lot of trust there. They may run out the back door at 3, but, I mean, just for the record, we give our guys a paycheck as soon as they walk through the door on Friday mornings, just to, for the record. In fact, sometimes it's in their toolbox before they even get here. So,
Even better.
So,
well, that's an excellent jumping off point. It's a terrific way to summarize it all and wrap it up. And we'll get you home on time tonight too. So I don't take your whole night.
Man.
But thank you so much, Ryan, for taking the time, for sharing your knowledge and your expertise. And
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it. I know, judging from the feedback we've been getting on this format of video, which is still fairly new for us, a lot of people appreciate this kind of format. And it's a long form way of having these discussions that dive deeper into the thought process and the philosophies of guys like yourself. So thank you very much.
my pleasure. And if anybody has any questions for me, they can reach me at drippingSpringsAuto.com or Ryan at drippingSpringsAuto.com.
Terrific.
So I had to give a little plug for
Of
myself
course.
here. But,
And we'll,
but anyway,
we'll put the contact information in the description below the video
Awesome.
too on YouTube. So
Yeah.
thank you again. Appreciate it.
my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. Now, in the future, we got some awesome videos coming up that have more toolbox and tool cart reviews, more of these formats of video. So you're not going to want to miss any of that. So do me a favor, click down here now to subscribe so that you don't. And remember, use a tool. Don't be one.